What do you think is the likely success here, though, in this war? That is the U.S.-Israeli attack on Israel, or sorry, on Iran. Or do you think they will fail?
I would say 30-70. It's by no means clear that 30-70 in terms of more likely 30% chance of success and 70% chance of failure. I'm looking at the analysis from two points of view, Glenn. The first is at the political military level, and then the shorter term. So how do I think the campaign will actually play out? And then the second is at what I call the grand strategic level. And what does this look like in the medium to the longer term? And it's quite subtle at that second level, but we might want to perhaps approach the question at those two levels, looking first at the political military level. I think a good introduction to this is the work of two people who you will know as well as I probably. The first is General von Clausewitz, who said that before entering into a war, you really need to understand the nature of the war. And I've got a strong sense that that the Americans don't understand the nature of the war. The other thing is General Andre Beaufort, who's a French general who I'm a fan of, who said that in war the loser deserves to lose because his defeat will be consequences of failures of thinking either before or during the war. And I'm worried that failures of thinking before the war are likely to lead to consequences that not only result in a potential defeat for the forces of Israel and America, but also longer term consequences which run against the whole interest of the West and indeed the global economy. A big deal achieving regime change through air power, not least of all because I can't remember when it was last done, or if indeed it has ever been done. Because regime change, you really need to have something substantial. You need substantial forces on the ground, which of course neither Israel nor United States want to commit to. So I think that at least though we do understand the approach that is being taken, I think it's really important as well to be clear on that regime change objective, because on that falls the success or failure of the campaign. And if regime change isn't achieved, then it would seem to me that from Israel and the United States' point of view, this will be a failure. I think from Iran's point of view, the objective to me seems to be to survive. Because if indeed they can survive, and not necessarily, I don't think they would ever expect to defeat Israel and the United States objectively, but if they can survive and do significant damage, and I think that their damage is starting to be done, then it will be a victory for them.
Against, compared to the last 30 years, because, well, in Afghanistan we had 20 years of war only to replace Taliban with Taliban. In Iraq, all these hundreds of thousands of dead. And what was achieved? Well, Iraq is now more closely aligned with Iran, who used to balance Iran. Now it's closely aligned with Iran, which is supposed to be the main regional adversary. Of course, Libya had some stability. Now it's just flooding Europe with refugees. It's been a mess for 15 years. In Syria, we had a government which at least respected minority rights. And now we have a ISIS leader, essentially, ruling it as our ally. It's just... Well, when we went into all these things, we had other ambitions. But again, there's very little room for criticism in terms of what can actually be achieved. Even if, the goal should be to regime change all these countries, where has been the success? And it's always the same, whenever there's a next war, it's always the same idea that, well, if you criticize it, then you're not patriotic enough. It's very frustrating to see that we do the same thing over and over again. But my point is that Iran is very different from all these other failures. This is, as we see now, a country which can absorb a lot of...
Back to Clausewitz. Clausewitz said that anybody involved in the war must first understand the nature of the war. And we have not understood the nature of the wars in any of these interventions, I'm afraid. And that as part of it, poor thinking again. I think, as I said, Andre Beaufort, the loser deserves to lose. We've deserved to lose those wars because we never thought them through in the first place. So it sounds to me like we're in a fraction of the objectives, so that it sort of suits the United States purposes to say something like, okay, well, we've written down the bombardment forces, we've written down the nuclear forces, we're now happy to stand back from this and let the Iranians undertake their own regime change. It'll be a way of, it won't be, I'm sure most people will see through it, but it's the way that I could imagine this going if